Didn't get that warm sunset you were hoping for? I've got a Lightroom tip that'll help you out. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport, and thanks for joining me in post. Before I get into today's episode, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel here, please consider doing so. It may seem small or trivial, but watching the audience grow week over week, that really gives me a lot of energy and a lot of excitement to come back and do other videos. And if you have subscribed already, thanks very, very much. I really appreciate that. So, talking about sunsets and how the universe doesn't always give us photographers what we want. You know, if we had my way, I'd have brilliant sunsets every night. But we don't get that. But that's what makes them more special. When you do get more of a dull sunset, not as much of that, brightness of color that you wanted, there are two things in Lightroom that we can do to give the otherwise dull sunset a little bit of help. So let's dive in and have a look. So here's this scene in Lightroom, and the sun got swallowed up by the clouds there. I've done my basic processing on it, adjusted contrast and tone and presence. If you've seen other videos in my channel here, you know how I approach these things, so take a look at those for the background on it. But for what I want to show here is the scene's dull, right? The scene didn't get that warm yellowy orange glow. There's some here, but as the sun's getting swallowed up, it's disappearing. And so there are a couple of things I can do in Lightroom to help the scene out a little bit. First is adjusting the overall temperature. So this here was as shot. Now I played around with it and I have a custom setting, which you'll see is just raising the temperature up. So I just took that slider and started dragging it toward the brighter, the warmer temperature. And so you can see before and after on that, that's already helping out. Let's say you want to go even further. There's something we can do with the gradients. So I'm going to open this one up and I'm going to turn back on the gradients that I have. I have a few of them set, but there's one I'm using for colors. Let me turn those back on. You can see this really brightens up. So what have I got going on here? I actually have three different gradients. I have this one here, which is just adding a little bit of saturation and a little bit of sharpness to the foreground of the scene. So that's primarily for the sharpness what I want there. The second one here, this is opening up the shadows just a little bit and opening up the exposure, you can see here. So that brightens up the foreground. But the real trick with the color is this third one I have here. So I'm going to click on that one. And I'm applying this to the entire scene. And there's nothing going on with the sliders except here, this color. I'm adding, a moderately saturated orange tone to complement what's going on in the sky. And so if I were to delete that filter, that's what it's doing. And if I undo that deletion, you're going to see how much warmth and how much, much more inviting this scene is just by adding a simple color gradient. So the tip of the week is adding warmth to your sunset photo, and there's two ways to do that. One is by adding warmth to the white balance slider, and the other is adding a color tint to a gradient in Lightroom. And I find that moderate to low saturated oranges or yellow gradients work well. It's kind of like split toning, but not quite the same, and it just adds a nice color cast to the scene to warm things up to more match what you'd expect from a nice subtle sunset. That does it for this week in post. Thanks very much for joining me. If you enjoyed this, let me know somehow. Contact me, comments, shares on social media. If you got questions about photography, please send them in. I want to help you become a better photographer, and whether you believe it or not, your questions really help me become a better photographer. So I want to reciprocate that as much as I can. Until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.